Welcome to Lawrence County History Corner. My name is Lori. This week we are covering the 1914 Massie murder. Again, this was actually a request from Facebook. Someone had asked about the murder itself. There were, like I said, three murders. We covered one previously. That was the Charles Massie Sr. murder, but it occurred in Fordsville. This murder actually occurred on Greasy Ridge and is actually covered in the Tragedy on Greasy Ridge book. There was three victims of the murder. The first victim was Nancy Ann Haskins Massie. Now, Nancy was a widow. Her husband had passed many years before the murder. She was born on the 22nd October 1837. She was the daughter of William Haskins and Rosa Sowards. And she had her husband, her late husband was Dennison Massie, who was born in 1834. Dennison had worked running a hotel in Ironton. That's how he supported the family. And he and Nancy would have 5 children: Missouri, Arvilla, William, Robert, and Mary. On the 2nd of April, 1889, Dennison sadly passes away, leaving Nancy and the children alone. In 1900, according to the 1900 census, Nancy is living in a house on South 4th Street in Ironton. She owns the house and she is using it as a boarding house, and her daughter Mary is living with her. By 1910, both Mary and Nancy had moved out of Ironton and were living on a farm on Greasy Ridge with 2 of her other sons, William and Bob. Now, Bob is one of the other victims. Bob was, like his father, had run a hotel in Ironton. Specifically, Bob had run the Clifford Hotel. Bob is short for Robert. He was born on the 23rd of July, 1865. While he was in Ironton, he was well known and well liked. He was described as being very quiet and inoffensive, was one of the words that was used, meaning he didn't have a lot of trouble with other people. He was 44 years old when he passed away, and he had never been married. Although he was a farmer, he was thought to have been very wealthy, and that was believed to be one of the reasons for the murder. Now, the third and the last victim of the murders in 1914 was Mary Massie. Mary was a sister to Robert and a daughter to Nancy. She was single like her brother and had never married, which made her a spinster of the time period. Her occupation was listed as housekeeper, as was her mom. But when I say housekeeper, that's not the occupation when we think of now as a housekeeper. What that meant is they took care of the house for their family. So Nancy was a housewife, and her daughter Mary helped her take care of the house and Robert. The family had, like I said, owned a farm and lived on a farm on Greasy Ridge. And to that farm came a man named Harley Beard. Now, Harley came from Chicago in 1913 to Lawrence County. He began working for the Massies in September of 1913. And according to not just Harley, but other people within the community, Harley and Bob did not get along. Harley claimed that Bob treated him roughly. That was a direct quote. And they often argued. After the murders had occurred, rumors began to spread that Harley was an escaped lunatic, that he had spent years in an asylum where he had been committed. Others said he was a foreigner by birth. Now, that seemed like a weird thing to say, but at the time, being a foreigner would have been someone that may have been questionable, and then as far as being, of course, a lunatic, is what they actually referred to him, or been in an asylum, they were trying to understand why he did what he did, because there was such a violent act of murder. Before the murder had occurred, leading up to the murder, um, on a Monday of that week, Bob had taken the buggy to Arlington to buy furniture. While he was away buying furniture, Mary had gone into Harley's room. Now, what they were doing together is not really covered, but it was questionable. She was, again, a single woman. You did not spend time in a bedroom with a man who wasn't a family member during this time period. So, very frowned upon. While she's in there with Harley, she gets caught by Nancy, her mom. And of course, Nancy scolds Harley, believing he's the reason that he was responsible for Mary being in there and the questionable behavior. Mary claims at the time that Harley insulted her. Of course, he denies it. Now, maybe this may have been an attempt on Mary's part to kind of cover her bad behavior, or it could have been legitimate that they were arguing, and that's why she was in the room. Needless to say, as time passes on, that night, 11 p.m. at night, Bob returns. He's been in town all day. It's taken a long time to get home by a buggy. While he arrives at 11 p.m. that night, a Monday night, Nancy tells Bob what happened while he was gone. At that time, nothing was done to Harley. No action was taken against him. The family apparently just went to bed. There may have been an argument. I don't know. That's not covered. What we do know actually comes from Harley himself. Keep in mind, the family's gone. So the only witness to what happened is Harley. So according to Harley, on Wednesday, that his being caught with Mary was on a Monday. Nothing happened Tuesday. Wednesday, Bob and Harley are out working on the farm. Bob is repairing a fence when suddenly he attempts to hit Harley with a hatchet in the jaw. Harley pushes him away in defense of himself, but Bob swings again. At that time, Bob threatens to cut Harley's head off, and after he does so, instead of cutting his head off or anything else, Bob turns around and goes up the stairs to the house. And while he's on the steps to the house, Harley, who has followed him, Bob turns around and punches Harley in the face. Harley, according to him, in defense of himself, picks up a large stake from the ground and hits Bob in the head. Once struck, Bob falls to the ground, landing at Harley's feet at the bottom of the stairs. Now keep in mind, this is the country, so it's very quiet, so this struggle has not gone unnoticed. And Mary is the first one to rush to the scene. And as Mary's running towards the front of the house, Harley's going up the steps to get into the house. Mary hears the fighting. She comes to the door at the same time Harley is at the door to come in. So they meet at the door. Over Harley's shoulders, or around Harley, she sees her brother lying on the ground, badly beaten. Mary, in defense, anger, fear, charges at Harley. Harley then hits her in the head 1 to 2 times, causing her to fall unconscious to the ground. Now, Harley now goes into the house, and the only member of the family left is Nancy. She's the only one left. Nancy, of course, hears the commotion from her son's attack and now Mary's attack, and she comes at Harley, and Harley hits her 2 to 3 times, again striking her about the head. She too falls to the ground unconscious. Harley, not really sure if his victims, Nancy and Mary, are alive, he runs to his room and he pulls out a razor. Now, when we say a razor, I'm not talking about the razor we usually see to shave your face with. This is a straight edge razor. You will see them sometimes in barber shops. It has been used a lot of times in murder cases even now. It's a straight edge razor, and then usually there's a handle where the razor closes in. It is extremely sharp, and excellent weapon if you want to use it. At that time, it probably was used by Harley to shave himself. But in this instance, he had actually got the razor itself from another farmer named Sam Davis shortly before the murders. So it led some people to question whether this was a little bit more premeditated. But regardless, Harley goes up, gets his razor, and goes back downstairs. Believing that his victims, both Nancy and Mary, could have been still alive, he slits both their throats. Now he has killed the 3 Massie family members. And people at the time believed he did so to get money. So he immediately starts, but we do know he immediately starts searching the house. And his first place he goes is into Nancy's bedroom. In her bedroom, he finds $20 and a watch. And he still takes both of those. He then proceeds to Robert's bedroom where he finds another watch. He takes both the watches, goes out of the house, gets the family's horse and buggy, hooks the horse up to the buggy, and then he travels to Gallipolis. In Gallipolis, he ties the buggy up, goes to the train station, and gets a ticket to Chicago. Again, he's from Chicago, and he's got family there. So he's heading out of town. Now, that's Wednesday. Sadly, the family lies in that condition until Thursday, when a neighbor, around 7 o'clock, John Clay, discovers the bodies. He, of course, as soon as he arrives, he sees Bob lying in the yard, injured. By this time, the whole family has passed away. Bob's head has horribly been beaten. He's at the foot of the steps leading to the door of the house, shared by him and Harley. One story says that, so I don't know if that meant there was 2 structures or 1. My guess is there was 1 structure. The whole family lived in it, including Harley. He then goes into the home. This is John Clary, and he finds Nancy with her throat cut ear to ear. Her skull had been crushed. Her clothing was covered in, her clothing and face were covered in blood, clotted blood, and she was found in the dining room. She was the second body discovered by John. John proceeds to go look for Mary, and there he finds Mary in the kitchen. Now, what causes them to pause is not only is Mary badly beaten, much like her mother, she has her skull crushed, and she has her throat crushed. But Mary is tied up with baling twine. Now, one account says her hands were tied behind her back. One said in front of her body. Either way, she was tied up. So it makes you question why Harley's account. Obviously, something more happened because Mary was alive at one point that he restrained her. Elmer Massie, Bob's brother, Bob and Mary's brother, Nancy's son, shows up, as does Willard Gravy Massie. I don't know why he has that nickname. And Cal Massie, both were cousins to Bob and Mary. And Sheriff Sloan were called to the scene. It was, of course, once they were there, it was discovered that the bodies had lain undiscovered all day and night into Thursday. Clary had actually gone to borrow a plow. That's why he was at the Massie farm in the first place. The stake that was used to strike the family had been used in baling hay. Harley's bloodstained overalls were found in the house, and his best suit was missing. Samuel Davis, who was later identified, who'd given Harley the razor, was an uncle of Harley and claims the razor itself was stolen from his home. Now, what we know is now we've got 3 dead Massies, and the murderer Harley Beard has flown the state. Like I said, he had taken the horse and buggy to Gallipolis. He left the horse and buggy at the livery, and he even tells them that Bob will pick up the horse and buggy and pay for its day by 2 p.m. on Thursday. So not only is he fleeing the scene, but he's making promises. He's really trying to cover his track as best as he can. The Sheriff Sloan, of course, contacts the Chicago police because they figure out that's where he's going. And they end up finding him at his sister's home. And the Chicago police captain, Coughlin, said he was, quote, one of the most remarkable prisoners I ever questioned. He claimed that Harley had spoke of the crime with another quote, no more nervousness or fright than he might tell of events at a picnic. So Beard was arrested. He was arrested in Chicago. He was brought back to Ironton. He was tried. When he was found in Chicago, he was in his sister's home. The sister's name was Mrs. D.E. Day. She lived at 1331 West Madison Street. The detectives who arrested Harley was Detectives Almacher and Fox. Harley was sitting at the table when they arrested him, eating fried eggs. When asked if he was there, Harley replied, nope. His brother-in-law asked why he denied his identity, and then Beard admitted who he was. He put on his best suit, blue with the pencil stripe, and a red tie, and went without fuss. So he was not really worried about what happened. He seemed to be very nonchalant in a way, which probably led credence to the lunatic or the rumors that he had some mental illness, and that was caused. He was tried and convicted, and he was sentenced to death. As far as the Massies were concerned, there was a huge funeral. Over 2,000 people attended the funeral. It took an hour and 35 minutes to go through the line to view the coffins. And the church itself had over 3,500 people at the church. Now, of course, not all of them fit in the church. Judge Edward E. Korn spoke from the steps of the church, and Undertaker Myers of Sandfork was in charge of the funeral, assisted by Mr. Bingham and Jones of Ironton. J.C. Snyder stood at the door of the church to keep people out after the church filled to capacity. Father of attorney L.H. Andrews was overcome and had to be carried out of the church. Reverend Walter Schaefer of Ironton's Congregational Church offered opening prayer. Reverend Ewing of Oakey Church read the scripture lesson, and Reverend J.B. Massie gave the funeral oration. The family was buried together, and Mary was buried. They were buried at the Mount Pleasant Cemetery on the 17th of May, 1914. And Mary, Nancy, and Robert were all laid to rest together. And since this is a very, very, very long story, I'm going to do a part 2 about what happened to Harley Beard after he escaped Greasy Ridge. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this part of the 1914 Massie Murder. If you would like to learn more about this or other things in Lawrence County history, please come to the second floor of the Ironton branch, where we have our genealogy department, and we'll be happy to help you. I will see you next time.